fish oils are now probably the most valued medicine in ancient world, far more valuable than olive oil. And why? Because we now know their abilities to reduce inflammation, the underlying cause of virtually all chronic diseases.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Zone podcast, where we discuss the science of wellness, metabolism, and the dietary pathways to maintain them. I'm Mary Perry, and I'm here with Dr. Barry Sears, and this week we're going back in time to talk about the history of fish oil. So, Dr. Sears, before we begin, people don't really know exactly what fish oil is, because there's a lot of different terms like omega-3s, omega-3 concentrates that sort of, circulate with the term. So, can you just go back to the basics of what exactly we're talking about when we say the word fish oil?
Well, when we say the word fish oil, we mean oil derived from fish.
Makes sense.
Means nothing. Now, not all fish have fish oils which are rich in omega-3 fatty acids. So again, we had to distinguish between those fish oils which are rich in omega-3 fatty acids and those are not. And then how can we concentrate up the natural levels of those fish oils rich in omega-3 fatty acids to even higher levels to get a therapeutic dosage?
And Dr. Sears, omega-3s have been used for centuries. So when was the first use of them going back in time?
Well, we talked about centuries, probably about 3,000 years ago.
Lots of centuries ago.
That's a long time. And they were first used by the Phoenicians, really as almost like a fish sauce. But it was refined by the Romans, the ancient Romans, into something called garum. So what exactly is garum? And now this is a very tasty recipe. First, you take fish intestines.
Sounds delicious.
and then you put them in big vats and you let them ferment for about a year. But what you had now was a much higher concentration of the omega-3 fatty acids, and these were now probably the most valued medicine in ancient world, far more valuable than olive oil. And why? Because we now know their abilities to reduce inflammation, the underlying cause of virtually all chronic diseases.
And when did we first start seeing the appearance of fish oil, in more recent times, I'll say?
Well, in more recent times, let's go back to the 1760s, when the first cod livers were being imported, along with cod meat, to England from Massachusetts. So now there's a constant supply of cod liver, which says, who wants to eat cod liver? But they found out if they let the cod liver ferment in big vats, the oil would rise to the top. And they skimmed off the oil, and they found it was a remarkable treatment for rheumatoid arthritis. First reported in the Philosophical Transactions in 1786. Now, why would it be useful for rheumatoid arthritis? Rheumatoid arthritis is an inflammatory condition. Now, that's about the best the medicine can do. So it was saying, yes, as long as we have a supply of cod livers coming from America, and we have vats in England, wooden vats, we're in pretty good shape. The big breakthrough in omega-3 fatty acid production came in the 1850s, when the Norwegians said, let's get rid of the wooden vats and use steel tubs so we can heat the oil up faster, not wait for a year for it to ferment, and have less odoriferous aspects. And that was the beginning of the cod liver oil industry. Now, let's go into the 20th century. No child in America could leave the house before they had a tablespoon of cod liver oil. Probably the world's most disgusting food known to man. It still is. But say every parent gave their child cod liver oil for three reasons. Two were obvious and one was not. The two obvious ones, cod liver oil is rich in vitamin D and vitamin A. And basically, they were one of the primary treatments for rickets. So again, by giving cod liver oil, you're decreasing the likelihood of a child developing rickets or having vitamin D deficiencies. However, they are relatively rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Cod liver oil contains about 20% of the total fat as omega-3 fatty acids. So a tablespoon of cod liver oil, that disgusting thing you had to chase the child around the house to take, contained about 2.7 grams of omega-3 fatty acids. The typical American today consumes about 100 milligrams. So the kids, say a century ago, were getting nearly 25 times more omega-3 fatty acids when they're taking their tablespoon of cod liver oil. Now, let's go back now to the U.S. and say, the next breakthrough was really an introduction of a thing called Max EPA. It wasn't so max, it was sardine oil, but the total omega-3 fatty acids had gone from cod liver oil of 20% to 30%. Okay, and you could put them in capsules. So now basically it still tasted terrible, but you couldn't taste it. So basically there was some fish oil products in addition to liquid cod liver oil available. Now, the trouble is, it wasn't very refined. So the Max EPA, quote unquote, was also very rich in PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls. These are the things you don't want in the body because they don't check out and they cause inflammation and genetic damage. So the fish oil industry was virtually basically a non-growth industry. But that changed around the year 2000. And the reason why, because we were working with a group of lipidologists at Hoffman the Roche, the drug company. It's not the Hoffman the Roche had anybody, but these were people that we had worked together over the years in developing certain rare oils like borage oil. And so we had expertise, they had expertise in oil production. We combined that expertise to give rise to the first really high quality fish oil. And that only appeared around the year 2000. That's about maybe 45% higher percent fatty acids of omega-3 fatty acids, a significant increase over Max EPA, but the levels of PCBs were dramatically lower. Mm-hmm. And that was really the state of the art for about another 15 years, until there's another breakthrough about 2016 of even lowering the PCB levels even lower. And we introduced that. We were the first company to introduce that fish oil into the world. Now, it's now 2025. What's new in fish oil production? Well, a new technology, a completely new technology called supercritical fluids technology. And it's a complex, very expensive technology, but it basically gives the ultimate expression of fish oil. And how? Because when you try to concentrate up fish oils, what you do, you heat them to a very high temperature. And then you try to basically distill them and get higher fractions and combine them. But as any cook knows in the kitchen, what happens when you heat oils, any oil, up at a high temperature? Bad things. Bad things. And these are some of the bad things as you get higher and higher concentrations. What are these bad things? Yes, there is basically oxidative damage, but more insidiously, there's called isomerization. Omega-3 fatty acids work because they have a very unique structure in space. But at high temperatures can change that structure. It's still an omega-3 fatty acid, but the structural change makes it now an anti-nutrient. Anti-nutrients are bad things. They basically foul up your metabolism. Now, what makes supercritical fluid technology so unique, you're not heating the oils up to about 200 degrees centigrade. You might be heating up to about 50 degrees centigrade at max. Because what you're using now is carbon dioxide. Say, well, yeah, it's a gas. But if you pressurize the gas to very high pressures, it turns into a liquid that can now separate EPA and DHA into different streams, and now you can recombine them. And how do you get rid of the CO2? You basically turn down the pressure and it goes back into CO2 at the gas. So it's a very, very green technology, but it's a very powerful technology to prevent isomerization. Mm-hmm. So now you get what I call greater biological potency. It's not how many grams of omega-3 fatty acids you take, it's how biologically potent they are. And if you have any anti-nutrients or isomerized fatty acids, the levels of omega-3 fatty acids are compromised because those isomerized fatty acids can bind either to receptors or to the enzymes and make them inactive. So this is why this third generation of supercritical fluid technology now allows you to have the cream of the crop. Say, I have now high concentrations, I have low PCBs, and I have virtually no isomerization, which means I have better biological potency, and for what reason? To lower inflammation. And virtually every chronic disease state known to medical science basically is driven by inflammation.
Now, Dr. Sears, how would you know an oil is created this way? Do manufacturers state it on their label, or how do you know? Because if, one of the things you said about the benefit of this is it allows you through the CO2 to kind of separate out that EPA and DHA, so you have different potencies and stuff. So would you see it in terms of the potency of an omega-3, or how would you know how this oil is sort of created using this technology?
Well, first of all, there aren't many people who basically make this type of oil because I said the capital expenses are very high. So you're relying upon, quote, the retailer of the fish oil to tell you the truth, which is basically a very tricky thing in the world of natural supplements. So you always have to say, okay, can I trace the history? And basically, do I have some indication of dealing with the integrity of the company? I think that the company that Zone Labs has integrity because basically we've been doing this now for 40 years. So again, what always looking to do in any technology, you keep improving it to basically bring it to a higher level, going back to the beginnings of medicine some 2,500 years ago, when Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine, let medicine be your food. And if you think about it, he was really talking about cod liver oil or garum or the Phoenician fish sauce. So, but you have to take enough without the toxins, unless you think basically taking fish oil that's been fermenting for a year in a Roman vat is a good idea, to basically get to your goal, which is to reduce inflammation. And if you can do that, you're going to live longer and you're going to live better.